Today I'm unearthing what is regarded to be one of the greatest PlayStation games of all time. Yes, that's right. This month I'm covering a good game. I know it's a shock, right? Yes, this month I'm taking a look at the original Tomb Raider. Now, there's no denying that this game is a tour de force. Not only is it one of the earliest examples of story-driven action-adventure games for the PlayStation, but it also remains a challenging and extremely well-executed puzzle game. I find it kind of amusing that, judging by the cover art, they were really emphasizing the sex appeal. She looks so disproportionate, though. I mean, just look at her enormous forehead. Oh, what? You thought I was going to mention something else? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so there's no tiptoeing around the fact that Lara Croft retains, as Stephen Fry would put it, a rather fulsome pair of fun bags.
Fulsome pair of fun bags there.
In-game, however, they're obviously less well-rounded, shall we say. She's like a sexy Lego. I mean, Jesus, they'd have your eye out. It's actually quite a surprise she doesn't use them in combat somehow. What a move that would be. Death by boobies. Before we get going on the story, there's an option in the main menu to perform a tutorial at Lara's home, narrated with great enthusiasm by Lara herself.
Welcome to my home. I'll take you on a guided tour. Use the D-pad to go into the music room.
Whoa, Lara! I know I don't review good games very often, but please try and contain your excitement. Here, Lara shows you how to perform the basics, including how to jump in various directions.
Press the jump button. Now press it again and quickly press one of the directions and I'll jump that way.
I just wish I'd known this was here before I started the main game. It would probably have saved me some time. In terms of the gameplay, it actually holds up pretty well, although Lara moves unbelievably slowly. I don't think it could pick up the pace a little.
I don't actually run everywhere. When I want to be careful, I walk.
You walk? You mean to tell me you move even slower? Indeed, holding the R1 button while moving makes Lara walk, which prevents her from falling off the edge of ledges. This is particularly useful when you need to execute a jump. If you hop backwards from the edge just once, you have enough room to perform a running jump to a distant platform. Now, I might complain that her running is unbelievably slow, but on the other hand, should you forget to walk while on a narrow platform, there is a high risk of falling to your doom. Well, there you go. Call me a sadist, but the deaths generally are pretty funny overall. It's just so abrupt and the screaming just adds to the hilarity, especially when it cuts off. Lara can also hang from ledges and shimmy along. And yes, again, this does take a while. Jeez, she'd give the Grinch a run for his money. Hey, this could make for a really boring sport. It's a close one this time, folks. The Grinch only just trailing behind, and the winner is Lara Croft in a photo finish. Hey, it's still more exciting than darts. But the slowest aspect of this game has to be the block pushing. This game is full of these massive blocks you need to push and pull in order to solve various puzzles, and it gets so very tiresome. While I appreciate the realistic weight to these blocks, I really wish they'd have streamlined this a little. I'm not kidding, it kind of feels like half the game is block pushing, and God forbid you push the block to the wrong place or you have to push it all the way back again. Oh, for God's sake! The block's not the only thing you're pushing, love. As for the story, it's actually pretty captivating, although the cutscenes are a little bewildering. Don't get me wrong, for its age it's decent, but the cutscenes left me feeling confused on a number of occasions. Luckily, the narrative is not too hard to follow, but it's often hard to tell what's happening, and I feel that some additional narration may have alleviated the confusion. I mean, Abe's Odyssey was released only the following year, and I have no issues with that game's cutscenes whatsoever. The game opens in the desert as a mysterious capsule is unearthed, revealing a woman trapped inside it. This means nothing to us right now, but it becomes clearer later on.
What's a man gotta do to get that kind of attention from you?
We then cut to Lara Croft at a hotel in India, where she's approached by a man named Larson.
Though truth is, it ain't me that wants you.
Oh?
No, Miss Jacqueline Natler does, from Natler Technologies.
He reveals he works for Jacqueline Natler, who has a job for Lara, and sends her to Peru to locate a mysterious artifact in the unfound tomb of Qualopec.
You could leave tomorrow. Are you busy tomorrow?
The levels in Peru are the easiest in the game by far. First, we need to traverse some caves and ancient ruins in search of the tomb. Oh, and they pretty much immediately throw you in the deep end by having you perform some frankly horrible platforming. Lara is rather stiff, and it can be a bit of a chore to position her in just the right place every single time to execute a jump. But once you get used to controlling her, it's actually pretty satisfying. The animations are very fluid, and the jumping itself is not a major issue, albeit a little slow and awkward. The biggest issue for me is by far the camera. Often you'll need to make a jump somewhere, and due to the cramped location, the camera refuses to let you see where you're jumping to. There is an L1 look feature to compensate for this, but you cannot reposition Lara while she's in this mode, meaning you have to keep activating the look feature repeatedly in order to make sure you're aligned with the platform you're jumping to. And while we're complaining about the camera, when you turn around corners, I found that the camera will delay a little before it abruptly swings around, so when it does, you often can't help but bump into the wall.
Oh, sorry.
Honestly, this feature is so irritating. Why did they include it? There were many times I simply misjudged how far I was from a wall or failed to turn in time.
Will you please stop bumping into walls? Your face is flat enough as it is. What the? Now that's just rude.
Combat is a little messy. Holding the X button will make Lara shoot continuously. The standard pistols do not use bullets, although there are other, more powerful guns you find throughout the game that require ammo. While shooting, Lara will automatically lock onto a target, and as long as you have the X button held down, she will continue to shoot that target. I do kind of wish that the targeting was a little better though. Whenever I used the guns, I often found it awkward to control Lara at the same time. Since the camera will automatically follow the enemy, you can easily get thrown off and find yourself walking over a cliff.
Ah, gravity, my old foe.
If you ever need to top up your health, you can find medipacks. These will be kept in your inventory until you need to use them. Small medipacks refill half of your health, while large ones refill your health completely. You can also find occasional ammo for your guns lying around, and if you're lucky enough to find some secret areas, you'll find even more of these collectibles. You'll know when you found a secret area when this sound plays. Interestingly, I found a lot of these secret areas completely by accident, as progressing in some of the main levels was often as challenging as finding the secrets. And while we're on the subject of collecting things, it's a little irritating having to position Lara in just the right place to pick up items. She bends down so awkwardly, almost smacking her massive forehead into the camera.
What? Lara, please! Personal space!
Ooh, me back. So anyway, everything up until this point has felt relatively ordinary. No big surprises besides some wolves and the occasional bear. And then here we have dinosaurs.
Absolutely no context here, there's just dinosaurs. Because why not?
Wow, they were surprisingly easy to kill. Oh well, let's keep going I guess, and Nope. I'm done. Goodbye.
Did we just wander into Jurassic Park or something? What's going on?
The T-Rex is surprisingly easy to eliminate once you've found a high vantage point. Yes, I know I'm a coward, okay? It takes a hell of a long time, but otherwise it's just easier this way. Don't judge me.
Maybe it would have been over quicker if we had some cream pies. Rest in peace, Barney.
Okay, so the objective of this level is to avoid the dinosaurs and find the missing cogs scattered throughout the Lost Valley. With all the cogs in place, activating the switch will open a passage to the next level. And it was at this point during my playthrough that Lara found the far more powerful shotgun.
You couldn't maybe have found that before you encountered the dinosaurs? Fine, whatever.
This eventually leads us to the tomb, and oh boy is this complex. The idea is to locate the various switches needed to open the gate to the artifact. There are hazards galore, and at this stage I hadn't even got the hang of jumping yet.
Great. I just skewered myself. I'm a shish kebab for the dinosaurs.
Once we find the artifact, the tomb begins to collapse around us, and as we make our way outside, Larson ambushes us. Yes, as it turns out, it's a trap. A booby trap, if you will.
But Larson's about to find out. You don't want to trap these boobies.
Indeed, Lara forces Larson to spill the beans, and he reveals the artifact she found is merely a piece of the Scion, a source of great power.
This piece, you say? Where's the rest?
Miss Natler put Pierre DuPont on that trail.
With this information, Lara heads to Natler Technologies to locate the whereabouts of Pierre DuPont and the second piece of the Scion. She finds a book that points her in a direction of the Tomb of Tihocan, located beneath the ruins of a Grecian monastery known as St. Francis's Folly.
Pierre. You litterbug.
Now, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I personally found the first level in Greece to represent a major difficulty spike. The first location is moderately challenging, but nothing I can't handle. Here, however, the enemies are on frigging steroids. First, there are lions to take care of. Fortunately, they can't climb onto any high-up surfaces, which is a blatant inaccuracy. We all know lions have paws like suction cups. Even so, despite my distinct advantage, they take a long time to defeat with the basic pistols. Are we firing blanks? Just die already!
Circle of life, baby.
Way to go, Simba.
A little further along, with absolutely no warning, we then encounter some
Gorillas!
Yes, gorillas, in the same place as lions. This place is a menagerie. I guess you could call them grease monkeys.
Gorillas aren't monkeys.
Yes, I know gorillas are not...
Yeah, but...
It works. It still works.
Why do I keep finding gorillas in the most random places? To conserve my medipacks, I actually retreated to my trusty block for this fight too. Yes, I'm still a coward.
You really wouldn't think I'd killed a dinosaur today, would you?
And just a little further along, Pierre appears and starts shooting at you. Oh, come on! Lay off, guys! Honestly, the first time I played this level, I was begging for the first checkpoint to appear. Even retrieving the medipacks ironically sees you having to risk your life to obtain them. Oh, for God's sake, Lara! I love that falling like that kills her instantly, but she can withstand a surprising amount of gunshots to the chest.
Aha! I see he didn't count on my bullet-absorbing breasts.
Once I'd escaped Pierre, I finally found a waterway to safety.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so at this stage I was still a little rusty, but in truth, the level becomes a lot more challenging from here onwards. The majority of it consists of a vertical challenge, as it sees you having to scale a tall structure to open a number of rooms, and complete the various challenges within them. The ultimate goal is to collect all the keys from these rooms to unlock the door to the next level. The challenges themselves are not too taxing, and I enjoyed the references to Greek mythology, such as the Atlas room, which requires you to evade a rolling boulder, and the Damocles room, which appropriately sees you having to avoid some falling swords. Although it's kind of odd to me that they have rooms dedicated to Thor and Neptune, when neither of these is derived from Greek mythology. Surely Zeus and Poseidon would have been more appropriate. In any case, it's still very inspired and not too challenging. The greatest difficulty of this level for me was navigating the building itself.
Ugh, she's dead again. Somebody get a mop!
If I have anything else to complain about, it would be the placement of checkpoints. Throughout the game, you'll find these big purple crystals, where you have the option to save your progress. Now, in the game's defense, it's optional whether you activate the save or not. But the thing is, for first-time players, you have no idea what dangers lie in wait, so you'll naturally save whenever you can. The problem I had with this is that I often found a cluster of these crystals in close proximity to each other, and then it seemed a hell of a long time before I encountered the next one. It wasn't too much of a problem, I guess, but it's incredibly frustrating having to repeatedly replay huge portions of gameplay when you're only stuck on one small part.
Of course, this is a flaw with many old games. I just wanted to complain.
Despite the complaint of the difficulty spike, I'll admit that the game only gets progressively harder from here on. And oddly enough, Greece wound up being one of my favourite locations in the game, and it's mostly because of how innovative and varied the puzzles are here. There's one level that requires you to search some rooms for 3 lead bars. Once you have the lead bars, you need to change them into gold, so perhaps Midas can give you a hand.
I'm rich! I'm wealthy! Yahoo!
The gold bars can then be used as keys to the next area. But stand on the hand yourself and you'll be subjected to this unintentionally hilarious death scene. Wow.
That's what I call comedy gold.
And by the way, if you try to place a key of any kind in a keyhole where it doesn't belong, Lara's response is hilarious. She could easily say, "This doesn't fit here," or "That's not quite right," but no, she just says,
No.
Don't want to elaborate? No?
No.
Well, there you go.
There's another level that's primarily underwater, and requires you to adjust the water levels to access new areas. I've heard people complain about the swimming aspect of this game before, but honestly I didn't have much of a problem with it. I imagine it might get frustrating having to collect items or activate switches underwater, but aside from being a little slow, it wasn't an issue. I'm also convinced that the secret swim level of Disney's Atlantis was inspired by this, as the gameplay is incredibly similar. In fact, even the inventory bears a striking resemblance, and that's interesting considering the continent of Atlantis also features pretty heavily in Tomb Raider.
Coincidence? I think not!
I also just want to say that Pierre is the most memorable of Natla's men for me, mostly because he pretty much stalks you throughout all of the Greece levels, opening fire when you least expect it. We don't get the chance to actually defeat Pierre until we reach the tomb, and not only that, we're also ambushed by creepy fleshy fireball-throwing centaurs.
Step aside, two legs.
They sure look threatening, but I managed to kill these things easily enough by hiding behind a doorway and hopping back and forth to avoid their surprisingly strong attacks.
You can call me a coward, but these guys aren't horsing around.
With Pierre defeated, we can take his belongings, including his part of the Skion and his magnums.
Here lies Tehokan, one of the two just rulers of Atlantis.
Upon piecing together the two pieces of the Skion, Lara has a vision of the rulers of Atlantis. Or at least I think she does.
Is it just me who finds these cutscenes confusing? I can barely tell what's going on.
From what I gather, there were once 3 rulers, one of whom was punished for having betrayed the others and used the power of the Skion to create some kind of weird mutant creature.
Ah, now it's making more sense.
Long story short, the vision points Lara in a direction of Egypt, and this is without a doubt one of the most challenging locations. One of the most memorable levels sees you having to find the various Egyptian hieroglyphs to open a large wooden door. These hieroglyphs are found towards the top of the building, and can all be accessed by activating the switches to lower the 4 bridges. For me personally, it's one of the most challenging puzzles in the game, and to make matters worse, the enemies are a lot tougher than any we've encountered previously. Thank goodness for the magnums, that's all I can say. Although, if you're anything like me and decide to conserve your bullets, the Panthers take a hell of a long time to kill with your regular pistols, and they often spring out of nowhere, giving you little time to find higher ground. Yeah, mate, can you just let me... Please, can you... Look, will you kindly piss off? The worst enemies here are the creepy mummies. They hop around on all 4s and cause a lot of damage. They're manageable if you have a lot of room to maneuver, but if you encounter them in a narrow corridor, you may as well just give up hope now. I want my mummy.
Why is everything so tough? I don't need this. I killed a dinosaur today.
The next level requires you to find more hieroglyphs to enter the Sphinx, and I'm not sure why, but this was a pain to complete. The platforming is particularly excruciating. I'm not entirely sure why I found it worse than most other levels, but I put it down to all the narrow platforms. What's more, there are more of these mummified mutant creatures bounding around. To make matters worse, they also explode when they die. You know, as if they weren't irritating enough already.
Oh, for goodness sake. Well, at least it can't get any worse.
Oh, and there are also flying ones too.
Oh, for crying out. It got worse!
After another face-off with Larson, we retrieve the final piece of the Skion. But in a shocking twist, we're then ambushed by Natla and her henchmen, who confiscate our possessions.
Well, kill her! You morons!
Lara manages to escape their clutches and later stows away on board Natla's yacht. We eventually arrive at Natla's mines, where we need to skulk around unarmed looking for 3 fuses to lower this hut. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is this game's music. I think the way it's used to build tension is quite clever. For example, part of this level sees you having to pull a lever to open a door leading to one of the fuses, at which moment this music plays. This is actually a subtle warning that there's danger up ahead, as the cowboy will try to kill you if you enter the room too far. The use of music throughout the game is altogether rather minimal, but the various flourishes and ambient melodies help to amplify the game's exploratory qualities. The discovery of a new location is made all the more spellbinding by the use of these stings, effectively enhancing the intrigue and prompting the player to want to explore further. With all 3 fuses in place, we can get our pistols back from the hut, meaning we can now take care of the cowboy. Immediately afterwards, however, I was once again stumped, and while up until now I've mostly applauded this game's difficulty, I personally think you could do with a nudge in the right direction here, as the way forward is incredibly hard to see. There's a narrow platform below the ledge here, but it's so awkward to make out, especially with the dodgy camera. We then have to make our way through the tunnels, avoiding lava and massive boulders. And eventually we encounter a skater boy?
Get out of my way.
See you later, boy.
With the skater boy eliminated, we can make off with his Uzi guns. Unless you were lucky enough to find the Uzis on an invisible ledge earlier in the game. Seriously, I know it's supposed to be a secret area, but how did people find this without a walkthrough? It's insane! Anyway, before too long, we finally make it to the Great Pyramid of Atlantis. Yes, that's right, Atlantis.
Oh, goody! I always wanted to come back. I mean, demon mammoths and giant spiders aside, it always was very picturesque, and the locals were really quite friendly. Let's take a look. That's Atlantis? Well, that's certainly not how it looked in a brochure.
Here we need to make our way to Natla for the final fight. Along the way, we come across a lot of incubators, which hatch open to reveal these vicious mutant creatures.
Ah! It's a mutant!
Ooh, things are getting exciting. Oh, come on, I hadn't had a pun for a while.
Now, for me, this was the toughest level in the game, and even with the Uzis, it was incredibly difficult. The enemies are relentless, and it just feels as though everything kills you. And that reminds me, remember that centaur boss fight earlier? Well, by this point, the centaurs are regular enemies. Isn't that just great? There are 1 or 2 timed puzzles around here too, which I wouldn't mind if it weren't for the camera and awkward controls. For example, you need to cross this slope before the door on the other side closes. And to make matters worse, there are more boulders. Come on, dude, this is hard enough already. At some point, you find this weird fleshy creature, and it took me longer than it should have done to realize that it's actually a mirror image of Lara. So yeah, I basically killed myself.
Why am I a dumbass?
The idea is to lure the fleshy creature into a pit simply by opening a trap door and running the opposite way. Yes, it's really that simple. As soon as we gain access to the Skion, Lara is shown another vision. As it turns out, thousands of years ago, Natla was one of the rulers of Atlantis.
Wow, she's looking pretty good for her age. I'm guessing she moisturizes.
To use the sacramental place as a source of individual pleasure. As some freak factory.
They're survivalists, a new generation.
She was condemned by the other rulers for abusing her powers to create a superior race of mutants. Yeah, she's crazy, alright.
Wreak your eternal unrest, Natla!
You won't rest either, or your damned continent.
As punishment, she was imprisoned in a frozen capsule, which was a capsule we saw in the prologue.
I was frozen today!
Natla then reveals her plans to unleash her monstrosities in the present day, and unveils a particularly large incubator.
Hatching commences in 15 seconds.
Too late for abortions now.
Not without the heart of the operation.
No!
Our next task is to defeat the giant mutant hatched from the incubator. And I personally found this easier than I expected. I'm not sure of the best way to do this, but I had no problem simply running in circles and shooting at it, as it moves incredibly slowly. Yes, slower than you, if you can believe it. I guess we're fortunate it doesn't have any legs.
So much for a superior race.
After destroying the Skion, the majority of the level plays out like an obstacle course, and they're basically trolling you every step of the way. Like here, for example, you're keeping your eye out for both the swinging blade and the spikes up ahead, so naturally you'll want to take your time to perform your jump just right. But then, out of nowhere...
Okay, this is painful. Temptation to rage quit is rising.
Honestly, this final gauntlet makes me want to cry. There are so many traps, and I lost count of how many times I died here. After taking a leap of faith into some water, we eventually find that Natla survived, and she's apparently part mutant herself. There are 2 parts to this fight. First, you need to shoot her down to the ground. After a while, Natla will regain consciousness, and you need to shoot her some more.
You can't bump off me and my brood so easy, Lara.
And that's pretty much it. Oh, and I have to laugh at the irony that I defeated Natla without a problem, and then a few minutes later I died by simply misjudging a jump.
If I didn't laugh, I would cry, honestly.
The game ends as Lara escapes the exploding pyramid in the yacht. After having completed the game, you then get to replay the levels with all of the weapons and unlimited ammo. It might not be the best reward, but it's a nice touch nonetheless. Sadly, there's no reward for having found all of the secrets, but the discovery of these locations is often rewarding enough in its own right.
But the question is, how does this game hold up overall?
Thank you.
While some aspects of this game have dated considerably, such as the graphics and a frankly horrendous camera, the gameplay itself remains fun and challenging. The level design is impressive, especially when you consider the age of the game, and the quality of the levels never dips. Aside from the odd spike, I personally find that the difficulty increases gradually and fairly, and builds to a surprisingly effective climax. Story-wise, I think it's pretty good too, even if the cutscenes could do with a little more clarity, and the voice acting is, somewhat lacking, shall we say. Despite its flaws, it stands a test of time surprisingly well, and remains a solid game overall. It's also hard to ignore how influential this title is in inspiring a wealth of other video games. It's a perfectly balanced blend of action-adventure platforming, combat, and puzzles, and as difficult as it can often get, I applaud the game for not spoon-feeding the player. Yes, there are occasions when it's hard to see how to progress, but for the most part, I enjoy the challenge. Indeed, some of the controls might be outdated, but this PS1 classic is still worth unearthing and exploring today.
Hey everyone! Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Lara?
No.
Oh. Okay. See you then.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed. This was a pretty hefty video to get through, and I wanted to do the game justice, so hopefully some of my slightly more negative opinions don't invoke much backlash. I'm aware certain aspects of the game, such as the graphics, were pretty revolutionary for their time, and you know what, this was actually my first time playing the game in its entirety, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to. It was a bit of a lengthy review, and believe it or not, there's quite a few deleted scenes from this video I'll be making available on Patreon. Now, while I can confirm that I played the main game without a walkthrough as usual, I did resort to using one for some of the secrets. And I've got to say, this website was absolutely outstanding. It's incredibly informative and really a massive well done and big thank you for this. It's extremely helpful and I highly recommend it to you should you get stuck. Also, the observant of you out there will know I've used that outro music in a previous video. I did have another song planned to play me out, but it didn't really fit the vibe. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling now, so I'm gonna head off. Hope you enjoyed as usual. I'll be back eventually, I hope. Bye-bye for now.
No.